Hi, everyone. Welcome to Eat, Move, Think. I'm your host for today's episode. I'm Dr. Andrew Miners. I'm the Clinical and Operations Director of Sports Medicine, Therapy, Rehabilitation and Fitness here at Medcan. Basically everything to do with muscle and joint medicine. So today we're going to be talking about how to get ready for your upcoming ski, snowboarding, and or cross-country skiing season. For those of you that are skiers, whether you're a cross-country skier or a downhill skier, you know that it's a physical task. It puts all kinds of force through your lower body and your upper body. And if you're not ready for that, you can create injuries and shorten your ski season and or miss the rest of the ski season after an injury, which of course no one wants to do. So starting now, into October, November, before the snow hits, at least here in Canada and in Ontario, is a great time to get your body prepped and ready to start skiing. So starting with downhill skiing, one of the things we have to really consider is our lower limb flexibility and strength. Because when you're going downhill, you're changing directions, you're shifting your loads, you're shifting your weight from side to side, and you're turning your lower limb to make your way down the hill. It's important to have proper strength and flexibility in those tissues, and also core strength is really important to help sustain that movement and keep your balance as you're going down the hill. Cross-country skiing has more of a cardiovascular, is more challenging on your heart and lungs than downhill skiing. And it uses more of the upper body than downhill skiing. And so you have to be more conscientious about making sure you've got full body flexibility, as well as making sure that you're prepared from a cardiovascular perspective before you get out to cross-country skiing. And then, of course, there's snowboarding, which, some people still relate to skiing, but it is a different activity. It's a different way of using your body to get down the hill. And because of that, you have to really prepare, especially with snowboarding, your core and balance become really important. And so preparing for that as part of your ski season or snowboarding season preparation is really important also. When we look at common injuries related to skiing and snowboarding, they are different because, as I said, they are different tasks. When we look at skiing, it's mostly lower body injuries, particularly the knee. And most commonly, it starts with sprains and then contusions, but also fractures can, of course, occur with skiing. It's usually from catching an edge or hitting something inadvertently, or sometimes maybe a collision or simply falling over. Skiing injuries tend to happen more on the more advanced skiers. The people are going at a higher rate of speed. And also, interesting enough, when compared to snowboarding, tends to be the older population, 40 and above. Now, with snowboarding, the injuries tend to be more upper body related, shoulder and wrist, because of the falls and the fact that your both feet are planted into the snowboard. And snowboarding injuries tend to be more common in the younger population, so 30 and under or 40 and under. A lot of times people ask questions of what should I do? And, is there a certain or a magic number of times per week that I should be doing X, Y, or Z to make sure that I'm prepared? And there really is no magic formula. A lot of times people I'll talk with, especially, skiing is something that is often enjoyed by people who are 40 and older. And sometimes their activities that they do through the summer is walking their dog or going on a hike. And that's not the same action. It's not the same activity as doing downhill skiing or cross-country skiing. It's much more engaged and also at a higher rate of speed, so the risk of falling is there. So any activity is good activity. As long as you're getting out there and doing something on a regular basis, that's a good thing. So if you are doing something, don't stop doing something. But when it comes to specifically preparing for skiing, again, having regular flexibility, so at least 2 to 3 times per week would probably be a good thing, but also strengthening. So doing actual resisted forms of exercise. And one of the things people historically think of being resistance exercise, like going to the gym and lifting heavy weights, also being a younger person's activity. Resistance training, which could be just body weight resistance or using light handheld weights or even around the house implements. Strengthening becomes more important as you get older, not less. Because having good physical strength in our muscles, tendons, and bones helps to keep the resiliency so we can continue to do the activities we want to do. When we talk about specific times per week, again, getting resistance training in a couple of times a week to 3 times a week would be great. Supplementing that either on the same days or alternating days with some flexibility. And also, especially if you're looking at cross-country skiing, getting in some brisk walking or even some light jogging, depending on your fitness level, would be great to prepare your cardiovascular fitness for the prolonged periods that you're going to be out in the cold weather doing a cardiovascular activity. Some exercises or some specific exercises that you might consider doing would be body weight activity. So body weight squats, right? Standing upright, feet shoulder width apart, and then having proper bending mechanics for your hips and knees and going down into a squat or partial squat position, because skiing is often done in that partially flexed squat position. The other thing that you can do if you're cross-country skiing, or also with downhill skiing, is do some lunge activity. So again, keeping up tall, engaging your core, striding forward and bending down, a lunge type activity, kicking back and switching legs. Doing that activity where switching weight from one leg to the other leg is also really helpful for cross-country skiing and for regular skiing, and also for snowboarding. Doing things where your feet are planted, doing things that'll challenge, holding some weights externally to you, moving your body around can challenge your core and balance as well as your lower body strength. So being creative with some of those body weight movements can be really helpful. Lateral lunges, so lateral squats as they're sometimes called, wide stance and leaning to the left and leaning to the right, can also be helpful for downhill skiers that have that weight transition from one leg to the other leg. And cardiovascular fitness is also something that you want to pay attention to and be prepared for. Definitely, cross-country skiing has a higher cardiovascular challenge because you're doing more of a repetitive activity. You might be going uphill as opposed to going downhill and using gravity to your favor. If you've ever skied out west, you'll know that by the time you get to the bottom of the hill, you're out of breath because it is still a lot of physical activity. So having that cardiovascular fitness is really important. So again, getting out, doing some form of cardiovascular activity, brisk walking, light jogging, cycling, things that you can get your heart rate up to that moderate to vigorous activity, which is to the point where you can still carry on a conversation, but it's labored, okay? You can still breathing heavy, but you're walking briskly with someone, you're having that conversation, but it's still difficult to breathe. That's where you know you're probably in the right target point to challenge your cardiovascular system. Many of you who are downhill skiers, and especially if you haven't used to skiing on larger hills, you'll notice your thighs are really sore, maybe your glutes are really sore during the ski day, at the end of the ski day, and even the next day. And that's because your body isn't used to that level of loading or repetitive loading. And even though you might be doing your best to prepare yourself for the ski season, spending a full day, 6 hours on the hill going up and down can be a lot of physical taxation on your quadriceps. And so you get muscle soreness. And sometimes even the next day you have muscle soreness, which is something called delayed onset muscle soreness, which is a normal, anticipated, and expected part of doing any physical activity. But sometimes if you overdo things, you can get excessive amounts of soreness the next day. So some things to think about are, if you're going on a big trip, make sure you take appropriate rest intervals during out your day. Go into the lodge, enjoy a hot chocolate, sit down and rest, or even do some stretching intermittently throughout the day if you're feeling any overt tightness or stiffness. Just taking care of your body and listening to your body so that you don't do what I often call break the rule of twos, which is do too much, too soon, too hard, too long, or often too little rest and recovery in between bouts of exercise, regardless of what that exercise is. The other things you can do is make sure you're stretching before and after you're starting to ski. So make sure you do stretch your major muscle groups, or at least do some mobility work through your knees, hips, and ankles. After skiing, again, indulge in a hot tub if you have access to one, or indulge in a cold plunge or a cold shower or a hot shower, something you can do to sort of just reinvigorate your body after the long day. You can also engage in self-massage, or if you have the means, engaging in an actual massage can be helpful for sort of working out some of the aches and pains and kinks that you might have built up through the day or after a couple of days of skiing. Another thing to consider is maintaining hydration. Make sure you're drinking water throughout the day. Oftentimes people don't think about drinking water throughout the day when they're outside in the winter because they may not be sweating as much, but you're still exerting yourself and you're still evaporating water through your breath and other things. So it's important to maintain hydration, and proper nutrition is also important throughout the day. So don't let yourself get too hungry. You need that energy to maintain your activity levels. A lot of you might be experienced in fitness and exercise. You might be experienced skiers, or you might be thinking about just starting skiing, or you may be not sure how to prepare yourself for ski season despite being an experienced skier or snowboarder or cross-country skier. And so you need help. And so there's a lot of avenues to get help. Here at Medcan, we have an excellent fitness team that can take you through getting you started on an exercise program, coaching you on the exercises and flexibility you need to do on a regular basis to get started. Or perhaps you have an existing injury that is limiting your activity, whether it's back pain or maybe an existing knee injury. Also seeking professional care from a certified sports medicine physician or sports therapist, rehabilitation specialist, chiropractor, or physio can also be helpful. Here at Medcan, we have all these services available for you, and you don't have to be a member. You can simply call in and ask to seek one of our services and to seek the care you need. We're happy to help everyone and all. So that's it for today's Eat, Move, Think podcast. I hope you enjoyed it watching or listening. Good luck on your exercise and fitness activities throughout the rest of the year, and hope you have a great winter.
This podcast episode is intended to provide general information about health and wellness only, and is not designed or intended to constitute or be used as a substitute for medical advice, treatment, or diagnosis. You should always talk to your Medcan healthcare provider for individual medical advice, diagnosis, and treatment, including your specific health and wellness needs. This podcast is based on the information available at the time of preparation and is only accurate and current as of that date. Source information and recommendations are subject to change based on scientific evidence as it evolves over time. Medcan is not responsible for future changes or updates updates to the information and recommendations and assumes no obligation to update based on future developments. Reference to or mention of specific treatments or therapies does not constitute or imply a recommendation or endorsement. The links provided within the associated document are to assist the reader with any specific information highlighted. Any third-party links are not endorsed by Medcan.